He joins us this morning on the Harbor One hotline. Hey, Mike.
Good morning.
How are you?
I too am defective. I have problems, but I'm not going to the Wigginses for marital advice, for example. I can hear Jermaine now. Mike, smoke a bone, get your wife in the jacuzzi, and get busy, and everything will be better.
That's pretty good advice, Mike. That is pretty good advice.
I mean,
Wiggy fancies himself to be an expert on everybody else's relationships. He's that kind of person.
I've seen a lot, Mike.
you have. And, I mean, what was the woman's name that called earlier?
Maria.
And so what are you going to do for her?
Well, I would first off say, all right, what pool are you looking in that you can't find these men? Because you know what? You might have to change that pool.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you go to a little younger pool. Maybe you go to, there might be a younger guy out there.
Greg, you hear that?
She might be swimming in the old man pool, and she's not really finding what she needs out there. She got to go to, that younger pool.
The younger guy.
There's a lot of guys out there that like cougars.
Maybe she should go older.
Or maybe
even
she does go older.
Go like the 70, 80.
Right.
The 70, 80.
But see, I don't know where
she's hit. She's hit the speed limit here at 63. She doesn't want to go older.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Mike. She definitely wants to go younger. But I don't, we'd have to hang out with her, Mike, my wife and I. And let me tell you something. If you smoke, get in a hot tub, more than likely you and the wife are going to have a nice night.
Or go to sleep. I don't know.
No, you smoke the right stuff. You're going to have a nice night.
All right. I don't know how we got here, but we did. I want to talk about the Bruins, but first I want to ask you, I had an interesting debate last night with my buddy Jakesy at the Celtics game about Ovechkin. Does the general hockey world want him to break Gretzky's record?
I think that it's probably a little ambiguous right now. I think everybody recognizes his ability to score goals is second to none. I mean, it's in a new age, too. He's doing it. His health has been great. Consistent performance by Ovechkin. I don't care if he breaks the record or not. I don't think Gretzky really cares if he breaks the record or not. I think it's a fun watch, and he's earned the attention. He's been a remarkably consistent performer, and, if he breaks, somebody's going to break the record eventually, I think. But it looks right now, if Ovechkin wants to do it and wants to stay healthy, he's going to break it, and we'll have to live with it. So suck on it.
Mike, when you look at where this team is, almost pretty much halfway through the season, and you start to kind of evaluate the expectations and, maybe adding a piece here or there, is it safe to say, have you ever, and we were asking this question, seen a team start like this before where they only lost 4 games in regulation?
No, I've never seen it, and I can't remember a team. Kevin DuPont from the Globe wrote about a comparison between 76, 77 Canadians. They were in the middle of winning 4 straight cups, and today's Bruins. Well, I can tell you, since I played against that team, it's a little early to make that comparison. As great as this start has been, that team had 9 Hall of Famers. 9. Cornway, Dryden, Gainey, Lafleur, Lapointe, Lemaire, Robinson, Savard, Shutt. That's half their team were Hall of Famers. And winning 4 cups in a row is something special. These guys, it's been a fun, incredible year. There's nothing to complain about. But you need to grab brass rings in order to be compared to the teams that or of that 76-77 season or later who won 4 cups in a row. I mean, this is a fun run, and we'll see if they can take it all the way to the finish line. They have, I think, 3 games in a row at home, and then 6 out of 7 on the road, and some really tough ones. So I guess if we get through that streak and they're still at, and this is ridiculous that we're saying this, I think it's an .850 winning percentage. You can't be a non-believer anymore. This is just, it's too deep, it's too strong. When I look at the roster, I'm looking at things. I mean, there's nothing that they need except maybe a little more depth on the blue line. I don't like Zboril or Stralman or Riley if somebody gets hurt in the top 6. But that's really nitpicking, and it's all, the engine is purring, and there's nothing to complain about. But to compare them to a team that's won 4 Stanley Cups in a row, little premature.
Don't you think there's
you want him to add when it comes to defense, like go get a big tough D guy?
Well, yes, I do.
Like McDonough or somebody like that kind of player?
Yeah, whatever they can come up with, it's a solid player that adds a seventh defenseman, because over the course of, if they're going to go the distance, over the course of 4 rounds of intense playoff hockey, somebody's going down for some length of time. I mean, it happens every year. And to be able to fill in successfully with a depth chart player is important at the blue line position. I think they have enough depth up front to be able to handle any kind of minor losses. But on the blue line, I'd feel a little more comfortable. But as I said, it's nitpicking.
Mike, don't you think?
We all got to see a video of you skating at Fenway last night. I don't think you're allowed to ask any hockey-related questions this time.
Just because I can't skate doesn't mean I don't enjoy the sport. Right?
All right, okay.
Mike, don't you think a more apt comparison for this Bruins team is more like that 2018 Tampa Bay team? They lost 16 games in regulation, 62 wins. Kucherov is kind of like what Pastrnak is doing now. The goalie was super hot. Doesn't that feel more like an apt comparison than comparing it to a team that, won 4 straight Stanley Cups?
Yeah, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while, Shime. Good point.
Thank you.
I like the comparison better because it's more recent. It's sort of up to date. I mean, 76, 77, that was a lifetime ago. And Tampa, you're right. Vasilevsky comparing to Ullmark right now, and nobody expected that to happen. The 2 defensemen versus Hedman, you almost give the edge to the Bruins here today. And Pastrnak versus Kucherov. Well, and there were a bunch of other guys, forwards on that Tampa team that could really play. But I think it's a fair comparison. And that team finished pretty well, too, didn't it?
Pastrnak is on pace to score 66 goals.
You know what's weird about that? Yeah, 66 goals. Connor McDavid has 20 more points than Pastrnak. Just gnaw on that for a while. This is it's crazy what this guy's doing, and they can't find a way to be super competitive. I know they made it to the conference final last year, and then they got spanked, but they need to find out that they need a goalie, I think. But it's amazing to me that this guy is so good, best player in the league, in my opinion, by a mile, and they're in the playoff bubble, which is weird.
Mike, we always talk about, regardless of sport, how important a coach is for a team, for a locker room. And it seems like in the NHL, there's more and more that goes into that. If you look at the midway point, 3 teams that have rotated their coaches are all leading their division, and they're all coaching for All-Star. Is that the case when it comes to the NHL, that you need a coach that can not only help them on the ice, but control egos and make sure everybody's on the same page? Because NBA, NFL, sometimes we go back and forth on how important a coach actually is.
It's, I put the coach, you're not going to replace, a coach is not going to replace your superstars for sure. But in terms of importance, he's probably about 5th or 6th on the depth chart of your roster, because he does have to manage it. He has to manage ice time. He has to manage egos, he has to manage injury problems, and the one thing he has, and the one thing this guy seems to have mastered, is his ability to communicate with players of all types. I mean, we haven't heard of any problems, no issues, nobody bitching. How could you be bitching about your team at this point, or your role on this team? But people like Taylor Hall playing on the 3rd line, happy as a clam. I mean, it's crazy that happens. Or, Jake DeBrusk has gone from Mr. Mopey to Mr. Happy. And it's all, and Ullmark's development and Lindholm playing like crazy. It's happy days. We talked about it before, Mr. Rogers and the great day in the neighborhood. But the thing is, you need to, it doesn't just happen. A coach has got to be involved in it 24 hours a day practically. He's got to think of what's going through, Trent Frederick's mind right now? Does he think he should be on the second line because he scored a couple goals in one game, or is he happy being where he's at, or am I happy with him in that current role? And then he goes to the next guy. It's whack-a-mole. It's never happy time. It's
crazy though, because when you look at the Stars and the Golden Knights, it's that coaching rotation, and all three of the teams are doing really well now.
It is, and we've seen it before with a different voice behind the bench, and it's a weird time now. It's so you used to be able to just tell the players what they had to do, and they had to suck on it. Now you have to explain everything and make sure that they're, you pat them on the back and pat them on the head and say everything's going to be okay, and you're the most important person in my life. But anyway, it's a different world, but that's the way it is, and he has it down pat, and there's a reason why he's the all-star coach, Jim Montgomery, and he's certainly earned it, and the same for Bruce Cassidy, the same for Pete DeBoer.
I think everybody expected that Patrick Kane trade was going to be a done deal this season. I guess there's some sort of an injury. He may have to have surgery. Do you think that changes that?
Well, I mean, nobody wants to trade for damaged goods, and especially when the damaged goods are making $10 million a year. So, I don't know enough about the injury or the possible surgery to make a comment on it, but there was a ton of interest in acquiring Patrick Kane by any number of teams. But when you start to factor in his age and an injury, it becomes a little more speculative. And so without having full knowledge of the situation, I'd say that the interest level has just waned.
Yeah.
Mike, I don't know if you've ever been involved with a team, whether as you're playing or you're coaching, that was so good that maybe mentally they felt like, all right, we can just go out there and we could do everything and beat everybody. I mean, I've never been fortunate enough to be on a team like that. What is the mindset of players in that type of position when you see with the Bruins, where you don't want them to you want them to be confident, but because they're so good, you're afraid they might get too confident?
Yeah, that's the coach. That's on the coach. He's got to feel his way through that, and that's why I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when they came to the Christmas break. I mean, Montgomery was calling other coaches, well-respected coaches like Scotty Bowman and Mike Babcock, asking, "What do I do in this situation?" And they had varying answers, and he needs to keep his finger on the pulse of this team. And the 3 games at home that they're coming up with, Kraken can score goals. It's not going to be an easy one. They're a fun team to watch and a dangerous team. But then they play Toronto, who's playing much better, and Philly, but still they take care of business at home, and I expect them to do that. But then that 6 out of 7 on the road against teams like Tampa Bay and Florida and Carolina are going to test them. And I'm not sure that it's going to be a bad thing if they lose a game or two and come back to some level of reality. Right now, they're on such a high that, you wonder if they're in dangerous territory emotionally, but they seem to be able to control it. They seem to be, they go up a goal and they give it up and they still win. They go down 2 goals and they come back and win. They've won in all manner and fashion, and that's a good sign of a team with character.
All right. Well, go ahead, Courtney.
Oh, I was just going to say, last week you were kind of the only person that we talked to that was not too worried about Jake DeBrusk and him missing a few weeks. Did you learn anything about this team in the sweep on the West Coast, or are they exactly who you thought they were going to be?
I had mentioned last week I was worried about them sort of falling off in terms of skating, but it seems like they've got that right back. And they have I don't want to call it a swagger, but it's a confidence now. When you listen to them after the games and interviews, there's just a confidence level that no matter what situation presents itself to the team, that they could find the appropriate response. That is a nice thing to have as a team. That's a nice confident level of a team that thinks it's going someplace and probably will.
Mike Milbury, always a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Next week.
We'll talk to you next week. That's Mike Milbury on a Bruins Thursday here at WEEI.